"You don't need the pool today." That's what she said, arms crossed, sunglasses glinting like daggers, and a smirk that could sour milk. I stood there on the hot pavement, towel in hand, cooler behind me, kids looking up at me with confusion and sunscreen-streaked faces. And I realized I had just been HOA'd by the Queen of Petty herself, Karen. When I moved into this community 3 months ago, I thought I'd hit suburban gold. Quiet cul-de-sac, freshly mowed lawns, golden retrievers on every porch, and a sparkling community pool just a block away. It all looked so perfect on paper, like a real estate brochure come to life. But what the brochure didn't mention was the tyrant in yoga pants who ran the Homeowners Association like her own private kingdom. Karen wasn't elected. She inherited the throne, like suburban royalty, and nobody dared challenge her. She was the kind of woman who measured your grass with a ruler and sent passive-aggressive emails about acceptable flower colors for spring. Her hair was always shellacked into a perfect helmet of judgment, and her little dog, Sir Wiggles, had more attitude than a Hollywood diva. The pool was the crown jewel of the neighborhood. It had a reservation system, of course. Online, first come, first serve, 30-minute slots. Everyone knew the rules, and I followed them like a good little neighbor. I booked a Saturday afternoon for a family swim. It was supposed to be our first real pool day since moving in. I had burgers marinating, the kids were buzzing with excitement, and my wife had even found her old beach hat for the occasion. Then Karen happened. That morning, I got the email. Due to unforeseen maintenance, the pool will be closed this afternoon. Sorry for the inconvenience. Signed, Karen. No apology, no explanation, just a closed pool on the hottest day of the month. But here's the kicker. Around 2 p.m., as I was sulking in the kitchen with a half-prepped potato salad, I heard splashing. Not just splashing, laughing, music, the distinct sound of a cannonball. I peeked through the blinds, and there she was. Karen, in the pool, with 3 other women and 2 giant flamingo floats, sipping what looked suspiciously like margaritas. I walked over. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I asked, as calmly as I could, "I thought the pool was closed today." She didn't even look sorry. She adjusted her sunglasses, looked me up and down and said, "You don't need the pool today." And that was it. That was the moment. The spark. You know how in movies there's that slow zoom in on the main character's face when they decide to burn the whole system down? That was me. Only instead of gasoline, I had something better. Karen's past, a few neighborhood whispers, and one absolutely legendary idea. She said I didn't need the pool. So I gave her a party she'd never forget. The thing about Karen is that she doesn't yell. She doesn't scream or throw tantrums. That would be too easy to fight. No, Karen destroys you with rules, technicalities, and fake concern wrapped in a tight smile that never touches her eyes. And in this neighborhood, the HOA rules are her weapons of choice. After that pool incident, I tried to let it go. Really, I did. Maybe she just wanted one selfish afternoon, I thought. Maybe she just needed a break. But Karen doesn't stop at one. Power, to her, is addictive. And the moment she got a taste of mine, she started sharpening her knives. It began with little things. My trash bins were labeled unsightly because I left them at the curb for 10 extra minutes one Thursday morning. I got a formal warning in my mailbox, complete with a time-stamped photo someone had clearly taken from a window. A week later, I received a notice about my lawn. Too many dandelions, she claimed. Never mind the fact that I had just laid down fresh fertilizer, and the grass looked greener than most. Her notices came like clockwork, each one more ridiculous than the last. Even my mailbox, which had stood unchanged since the house was built, was now non-compliant with current aesthetic standards. She never signed them personally, of course, just her usual initials, KL. The neighborhood group chat wasn't much help either. Everyone vented about her, but when push came to shove, no one would stand up to her. It was like she'd trained them. Punish one, silence the rest. And to be honest, it almost worked on me. Almost. The final straw came 2 weeks after the first pool fiasco. My sister and her husband were visiting from out of town, and I thought a small family barbecue by the pool would be perfect. The HOA website showed availability. I signed in, clicked on the open Saturday evening slot, and reserved it. I even double-checked. Everything looked good. My sister was excited, the kids were packing swim goggles, and I'd bought extra charcoal and popsicles. But then, like clockwork, came the email. Due to an administrative oversight, your reservation has been cancelled. Please select another available time. Regards, HOA Management. Again, those same initials. KL. And when I checked the site, the time slot was suddenly marked as unavailable. Just like before. I knew, it was her. I didn't even need to look out the window to see what was coming. Sure enough, come Saturday evening, Karen was there in her wide-brimmed hat, surrounded by the same 3 women, their laughter echoing off the water like a cruel joke. She had a Bluetooth speaker blaring soft jazz, a citronella candle burning, and a charcuterie board laid out like she was hosting a lifestyle show. One of the women made eye contact with me as I walked past and gave an awkward little wave. Karen? She didn't even flinch, just raised her wine glass slightly in my direction, a queen surveying her kingdom. That night, I stood in my backyard, flipping burgers I had no appetite for, listening to my niece ask when we were going to the pool. I watched the sprinkler arc across the grass, pretending it was the sound of waves, pretending I wasn't furious. But I was. Not because she used the pool, not even because she lied. I was furious because she thought she could keep getting away with it, because she thought no one would dare stand up to her. And she was almost right. Almost. Until I remembered what my neighbor Tom had told me the week before, over a beer and a whisper. Karen's got skeletons, man, and I know where they live. Tom wasn't the kind of guy who usually got involved in drama. Retired military, quiet, always trimming hedges or fixing something in his garage. But when he said he knew where Karen's skeletons were buried, I paid attention. He took a long sip of his beer, glanced over his shoulder like we were in some kind of spy movie, and said, "You didn't hear this from me, but Karen's got a history, and it's messier than her front yard when Sir Wiggles digs up the flower beds." That's when the real digging began. Not into the dirt, but into her past. I started with the neighborhood gossip. Everyone had a story, and all it took was the right tone of curiosity to get them to spill. Mrs. Ellison across the street, who always wore house slippers to fetch the mail, told me that Karen had gone through 3 engagements before moving into the neighborhood. 2 of the exes lived nearby, one just a few streets over. "She ran hot, that one," she whispered. "Got into a screaming match in the driveway one night. Cops came and everything." Then there was Dave, a regular at the weekend farmers market, who used to date Karen back in her early 30s. He laughed when I mentioned her name. "Oh man, she's still terrorizing people. I was engaged to her for 6 months. She gave me a laminated binder of rules to follow, like actual printed pages. Who does that?" He gladly gave me his number when I told him about the pool drama. "Let me know when the revolution starts," he joked. Late at night, I scrolled through Karen's old public Facebook posts. Pictures of past trips with different men. Captions like, "New beginnings," and "He gets me this time." The comments were telling. Hearts 1 month, angry emojis the next. It didn't take long to compile a list of names. Some were harder to find than others, but by the end of the week, I had 5 exes within driving distance, 3 still in the neighborhood, and 1 who happened to own a local taco truck. The more I found, the clearer the plan became. Karen had spent years crafting the perfect image of control, precision, and respectability. But behind that facade was a trail of chaos, bruised egos, and bitter memories. And for the first time since I moved in, I had something she didn't: leverage. I couldn't sleep the night the plan came together. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow circles, thoughts racing. Karen had humiliated me twice now. She manipulated the system, bent rules to suit herself, and wore her authority like a crown. But crowns can slip. I didn't want to shout or fight or stoop to her level. No, I wanted something better, something poetic, something she'd never see coming. And that's when it hit me. If Karen wanted to rule the pool like it was her personal palace, then I'd turn it into her personal nightmare. It started with the reservation. I woke up early the next morning, earlier than usual, and logged into the HOA Booking System at 6 a.m. sharp. There it was, Saturday afternoon, wide open. I clicked the box, confirmed the reservation, and got the automated confirmation email. Done. Legit. Locked in. No way she could override it without tipping her hand. Then came the real work, reaching out to the exes. I wasn't entirely sure who would bite. Reconnecting with old flames to attend a spite-fueled pool party wasn't exactly a common request. But I didn't have to say much. A few texts here, a couple of calls there. I explained what Karen had done, how she'd manipulated the pool schedule and pushed everyone around. I told them I wanted to throw a summer bash, and it just so happened that she'd be within earshot. I never even had to ask them to come for revenge. They volunteered. Turns out, Karen didn't just burn bridges. She detonated them. By Thursday, the guest list had 5 of her exes confirmed. One of them, Troy, ran a small barbecue catering side hustle and offered to bring ribs and sliders. "Any chance I get to mess with Karen, I'm there," he said with a chuckle. Another, Evan, who she dumped after finding a better fit, asked if he could bring his new girlfriend, who, by the way, used to be Karen's Pilates instructor. I created a low-key neighborhood event post. No names, no drama, just poolside bash, food, music, and fun, all welcome. A few curious neighbors chimed in, some even RSVP'd. I picked up extra folding chairs, bought a few disposable floats, and dug out an old speaker that still blasted Spotify playlists like a champ. The entire setup was calm, friendly, legal, but underneath the sunscreen and soda coolers, it was a declaration. She said I didn't need the pool, so I made sure she couldn't ignore it. Saturday arrived blazing hot, as if the universe itself had RSVP'd to the chaos I'd invited. The sun was unforgiving, the kind of day where the concrete almost sizzles under your flip-flops, and the only logical escape was a plunge into cool, chlorinated water. I arrived an hour early with a cooler full of drinks, a speaker, folding chairs, and more snacks than a college football tailgate. I staked my claim at the far corner of the pool deck and set everything up calmly, smiling at every passerby as if it were just another wholesome neighborhood get-together. But inside, I could feel the hum of anticipation like static building before a storm. It started slow, like any ordinary gathering. A couple from down the street walked over with their teenage kids, lured by the smell of barbecue and the vague promise of good vibes from the group post. Then came Troy, rolling up like he owned the block, cargo shorts, sunglasses, and trays of food tucked under both arms. The man didn't just bring ribs, he brought heat. Within minutes, the scent of grilled meat wrapped the pool in a mouth-watering cloud of temptation. People trickled in, following the smell and the sound of music. Evan came next, hand in hand with his stunning girlfriend, who offered me a mimosa and complimented the playlist. I nearly dropped my cup. By 2 o'clock, the pool was alive. Kids cannonballed off the edge, floaties bounced between laughing bodies, and adults lounged with red solo cups, sharing stories and laughter. My speaker pumped out a perfectly curated summer mix, a blend of 90s throwbacks and breezy pop that kept the energy high. People danced, played pool volleyball, even started a limbo line near the shallow end. The neighborhood hadn't felt this alive in years. Then came the magic. The exes, almost like a sitcom ensemble cast, found themselves circling near the snack table. They recognized each other instantly, exchanged raised eyebrows, then broke into laughter like long-lost teammates reunited for one last play. Troy offered a beer to Evan, who nodded toward a third guy I hadn't even invited. Apparently another of Karen's blasts from the past, who heard about the party through the grapevine and couldn't resist. They swapped Karen's stories like baseball cards, each one more ridiculous than the last. Evan shared how she once had a meltdown because his fridge shelves weren't labeled. Troy admitted she'd once filed a noise complaint against her own birthday party when he forgot to bring her noise-friendly candles. The whole thing became a kind of reverse roast. Karen wasn't even there, but her presence was felt in every chuckle and raised eyebrow. And me? I just kept topping off drinks and nodding politely, like the humble host who had no idea how perfectly everything was falling into place. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming space, turning something controlled and weaponized into a scene of pure joy and community. The irony was thick and beautiful. Karen had worked so hard to hoard the pool, to make it hers. And now it belonged to everyone. Her past, her rules, her grip. It was all unraveling under the weight of one damn good party. She hadn't shown up yet, but I knew it was only a matter of time. And when she did, I wanted the music loud, the laughter louder, and every one of her exes soaking wet, toasting the day she told me I didn't need the pool. She arrived just after 3, her heels clicking angrily against the pavement like war drums. You could feel the shift in the air before anyone even saw her. Conversations dulled, laughter softened, and a few people exchanged nervous glances toward the gate. And then, there she was, Karen in full battle mode. Wide-brimmed hat tilted low, oversized sunglasses masking the fury in her eyes, lips pressed into a thin line like she was trying to keep the scream from spilling out too soon. Sir Wiggles trotted beside her in a rhinestone leash, oblivious to the brewing storm. She didn't look at me at first. She looked at the crowd, scanning the scene like a general surveying a battlefield gone rogue. Kids in floaties, neighbors with drinks, music pumping. Her exes, laughing, shirtless, bronzed like Greek statues, holding court near the grill. It was too much for her. Her face twitched. She crossed her arms. "What is this?" she snapped, her voice slicing through the party like a blade. I gave her the same calm, passive smile she always wore when cancelling my reservations. "A neighborhood get-together," I said. "Everything's within the rules. Reservation confirmed. I can forward you the email if you want." Her nostrils flared. "You think this is funny?" "No," I said, deadpan. "I think it's community." She stormed toward the food table where Troy and Evan were now laughing uncontrollably. "You invited them?" She hissed at me, low and sharp. "I didn't have to. Word gets around," I replied. That was when she lost it. "You're all trespassing," she shouted, pointing wildly. "This is harassment. I will have every single one of you fined. You think this is a joke? I run this HOA." Someone, maybe Evan, let out a dramatic whistle. "Still making it all about you, huh, Karen?" Laughter bubbled around the pool, soft at first, then louder, until even the teens lounging under the umbrellas were snickering. Karen's hands trembled. She whipped out her phone and started dialing. "Who are you calling?" I asked, still smiling. "Security," she barked. "You're going to regret this." A few minutes later, the neighborhood security guy showed up, a college kid with a clipboard and a polo 2 sizes too big. He checked my reservation, nodded, and shrugged. "Looks like everything's in order. Sorry, ma'am." Karen stared at him like he'd just slapped her. "You don't understand," she hissed. "This is a setup." but he was already backing away, clearly wanting no part in her unraveling. And that was it. Her power, her precious grip on the pool, the HOA, the neighborhood, evaporated like mist under the sun. She stood there, surrounded by sunblock, burgers, and ghosts of her past, absolutely powerless. I handed her a cup of lemonade on my way to the grill. "You look warm," I said gently. "Pool's right there if you want to cool off." The aftermath didn't explode, it simmered. Karen didn't come storming back with lawyers or board members the next day. She didn't slap me with a fine or orchestrate a neighborhood-wide petition. No, what followed was quieter, more satisfying. She retreated. The first sign was the silence. Usually her presence loomed like humidity, sticky and suffocating. Her emails came like clockwork. Morning announcements, reminders about leash laws, updates about mailbox paint. But after the party, the HOA inbox stayed oddly quiet. No fines, no new memos, just a ghost town of authority. It was as if the crown had been knocked off her head, and now she didn't know how to hold it anymore. Then came the whispers. At first, they floated through the neighborhood like dandelion fluff, harmless, almost innocent. Parents talking at the park, couples walking their dogs. "Did you hear what happened at the pool? Karen really lost it, didn't she?" It wasn't gossip anymore. It was legend. The party had transformed from a petty act of revenge to a full-blown neighborhood myth. People who hadn't even been there acted like they had front-row seats. One neighbor swore Karen tried to throw a floaty at her ex. Another claimed she left in tears, which wasn't true, but I didn't correct it. Legends need flavor. Neighbors started opening up more. The couple who used to keep to themselves on Elm Drive invited me for a beer. Mrs. Ellison brought over cookies, grinning like she was finally free from a curse. Even Tom, the man who lit the fuse with his whisper about skeletons, gave me a salute as he passed my driveway. It was as if everyone had been holding their breath for years, and now they could finally exhale. Karen wasn't gone, but something in her had shifted. She still walked Sir Wiggles around the block, but now with her head slightly lower. She skipped the last HOA meeting, unheard of. Word got around that she was re-evaluating her leadership role. Whether she resigned or just retreated to lick her wounds, I didn't care. The point had been made, not just to her, but to everyone. The pool didn't belong to one person. The neighborhood wasn't her kingdom. It was ours. 1 week later, I got a card in the mail. No name. Just a white card with gold trim. Inside, in careful handwriting, were 4 words. "Thank you. About time." I never found out who sent it. I didn't need to. That Saturday, I walked past Karen while heading to the mailbox. She looked at me, then quickly looked away. For once, she had nothing to say. And honestly, that silence was sweeter than any apology. It's funny how fast things can change once you stand your ground. Just a few weeks ago, I was the new guy on the block, stumbling through HOA bylaws and quietly enduring every snide comment Karen tossed my way like crumbs from a high horse. Now I was the guy who threw that party, the one people still smiled about over morning walks and backyard fences. Somehow, by doing the thing she never expected, playing by the rules while outplaying her, I'd shifted the whole dynamic, not just with her, but with everyone. I started getting more invitations. A couple of neighbors asked if I'd help organize a 4th of July cookout. Someone dropped off a flyer for a block movie night, handwritten with a smiley face. Even the people who used to avoid eye contact now waved enthusiastically as they passed. I wasn't just part of the neighborhood anymore. I was part of the story. And Karen? She stayed in the background, where the noise of her control couldn't quite reach anymore. One evening, just as the sky turned sherbet orange and the cicadas started their nightly hum, I found myself back at the pool, not for a party, just sitting on the edge, toes in the water, drink in hand, watching the reflection of the trees ripple with the breeze. A few kids played quietly on the other side, peaceful. No power games, no laminated rulebooks, just what the pool was meant to be. Karen walked by, no sunglasses, no clipboard, just her and Sir Wiggles, leash dragging a little looser than usual. She paused for a second, as if debating whether to say something, but she didn't. She just nodded and kept walking, and that was enough. As I leaned back and let the last bit of sunlight warm my face, I thought about her words from that first confrontation. "You don't need the pool today." I smiled. Because she was right in one way. I didn't need the pool that day. But I sure as hell made sure she'd never forget the day I took it back.